I've made no secret about my aversion to multiplayer-focused games in the past. A lot of that stems from an over-reliance on active player bases and stable network elements, which can be rather capricious, but in recent years the inclusion of predatory monetization has only made things worse. Destruction All-Stars is a game that I really should love, with its varied cast of cool characters and fun arcade action, but it runs into enough connection issues and intrusive microtransactions to leave a bad taste in my mouth. Conceptually though, I think Destruction All-Stars is simple and fantastic. At its core, the game is a fast-paced arcade destruction derby where the goal, across all game modes, is to damage and destroy your opponent's vehicles by hitting them at high speeds. The game's cars feel fast and responsive, and colliding with others has a really satisfying weight to it, especially when using the right stick's dedicated slam maneuver to boost right into them. But driving vehicles is only half of the fun in Destruction All-Stars, as you're bound to be on foot for at least a small chunk of practically every match. In addition to beginning on foot, you're able to eject from your car at any given time, allowing you to escape a wreck and deny the opposition points for a KO, or simply letting you swap your old busted ride for a new hotness. Running around the game's arenas on foot does put a bit of a target on your back, since all it takes is one good hit from an opposing vehicle to knock you out for big points, but you aren't completely defenseless. For starters, what you lack in sheer speed and stopping power you gain in mobility, as each driver is able to jump and wall run above the vehicular carnage taking place on the arena floor. Additionally, you have a dodge that lets you vault over incoming vehicles, which in turn opens them up to be hijacked or wrecked, at which point the game initiates a simple button matching versus stick waggling minigame. And in terms of its broad gameplay, that pretty much sums up Destruction All-Stars. Hit other cars, don't get hit, and if you do get hit, try not to get KO'd. But the game does offer some variety by way of its cast of characters and the unique abilities that they, and their cars, feature. Though the cars available to you at the outset of every match vary in terms of hit points and speed, they're generally pretty unremarkable. However, by gaining points or collecting special crystals while on foot, you're able to build up a breaker meter which allows you to call in a special hero vehicle that only you can drive. In addition to simply being better vehicles, each hero car comes with its own unique ability to shift the odds in your favor. These range from utility skills like Sergeant Rescue's Smokescreen, which blinds opponents that you slam into, to more offensive abilities such as Hannah's Blade ability, which executes a one-hit wreck on any car that you slam. In addition to vehicle abilities, each character has their own on-foot special as well, though I found these to be far less useful than the car-based offerings. The most useful part of them is that they provide a speed boost and a double jump, though some of the better abilities also let you activate nearby traps by simply approaching them, or they boost your on-foot melee ability into something that's actually able to KO other pedestrians as opposed to the useless non-boosted barge that every other character gets. On top of variety through character differences, Destruction All-Stars also offers a handful of game modes to spice things up. For starters, you have the basic free-for-all mayhem mode where points are scored based on vehicle wrecks, character KOs, and the severity of hits you land on your opponents. But the game also offers Gridfall, a survival mode in which players each have a single life and the floor is constantly dropping out from under them. It's hectic, it's chaotic, and it's so much fun. But if you're more of a team player, the game also features the modes Carnado and Stockpile, which both focus on accumulating points via the usual methods before banking them. Carnado tasks you with building up points in a single car before sending it into the titular Carnado. It's a very fun mode that forces you to weigh the reward of building a larger score over time against the risk of having your vehicle explode, taking all those potential points with it. Stockpile, meanwhile, forces you to collect and bank these points on foot and ends when a team is able to max out a majority of a stage's banks. On paper, the mode sounds interesting, but herein lies my first issue with Destruction All-Stars. Actually finding a game of Stockpile has been next to impossible for me. In fact, finding games of anything other than Mayhem can take quite a while, which is frustrating because matchmaking is about the only time Destruction All-Stars will keep you waiting, since load times are pretty negligible. But finding matches isn't the only place where Destruction All-Stars stumbles. It also has a small but aggravating array of connectivity issues, such as noticeable lag, which can make dodging oncoming vehicles, or even intercepting speeding opponents, much more difficult than it really should be. My other big complaint with Destruction All-Stars is that it's a little light on meaningful content, both in terms of gameplay options and worthwhile rewards. The game offers AI-filled arcade versions of its 4 multiplayer game types, as well as practice options to let you familiarize yourself with the roster, but its most disappointing feature is its challenge series option. These character-focused challenges are the source of self-contained stories that flesh out the roster more than their limited bios do, and they even apply the game's simple mechanics to unique scenarios like time trials and crazy taxi-style delivery missions, and they're honestly a neat break from the multiplayer madness. But they're held back by the fact that beyond the initial challenge series, you have to use microtransactions to unlock them, which is just really gross. Additionally, the challenge series is where you unlock a handful of the game's rewards, but Destruction All-Stars is woefully lacking in interesting cosmetics. With an onslaught of profile emblems and banners, as well as basic palette swaps and emotes, there just isn't anything to hook you to play more beyond the genuinely fun but limited gameplay. On the surface, these issues are generally pretty small, aside from the challenge series thing, which is genuinely disgusting, but the connection issues crop up often enough to be rather annoying, and without a compelling reward scheme, I'm not sure I can see myself playing Destruction All-Stars regularly or for a long time. It's a shame too, because I think the game has a lot going for it. In addition to its fun and frantic multiplayer action, Destruction All-Stars has a colourful, cartoonish style and a diverse cast of unique characters that feature an equally diverse range of animations. The game is a joy to look at, as each car you commandeer transforms from its neutral colour scheme to something more suitable for your character, and aside from a couple of frame rate drops during particularly chaotic moments, the game runs really well. There's some solid audio on display here as well, though I wouldn't call a lot of it memorable. I personally like the dynamic music in the character select screen, which changes to better suit the chosen character, and the in-game commentary does a great job of keeping you aware of absolutely everything, from the status of your special moves to the current state of the scoreboard. These are neat flourishes and useful features, and they work great within the confines of the game, but there isn't a lot that will stay with me once I put the controller down. Speaking of the controller though, I think it's also worth talking about the game's use of the features of the DualSense, since this is a PS5 exclusive. Though not as impressive as other titles, Destruction All-Stars makes use of the adaptive triggers by giving them a little bit of resistance while accelerating, which is always satisfying. More interestingly, the game utilizes the controller's haptic feedback to indicate your vehicle's health as you play, making the DualSense sputter and fail as your car falls apart. It's a small touch, sure, but so are most of my favorite DualSense implementations so far, so there you go. But neat controller gimmicks, a fun art style, and satisfying gameplay can only take a game so far, and as I said earlier, Destruction All-Stars is likely to be a rather short experience, unless the gameplay really gets its hooks into you. There's no significant single-player gameplay, the rewards on offer aren't particularly enticing, and frankly, even if the gameplay is engaging, which it is, you can only play the same 4 modes, or 3 in my case, so many times before it gets old. Being an online game, there's plenty of opportunity for Destruction All-Stars to grow over time, but hey, you only get one shot at a first impression, and this one leaves a little something to be desired. And with that, Destruction All-Stars is mediocre. In all honesty, I think Destruction All-Stars has some really fantastic gameplay to offer, but the bothersome lag, lackluster rewards, and slim offering of content does bring the experience down quite a bit. Furthermore, the microtransactions wouldn't be so bad if they were restricted to the uninteresting palette swaps that the game has in store for players, but they actively lock off some of the game's only solo content, which is awful. Since at time of writing this is only available via PlayStation Plus, I recommend checking it out if you've got a subscription to that service already, but once the game is widely available as a full-priced game, I'm not sure I can recommend it, at least not in its current content-starved state. Destruction All-Stars is available on PlayStation 5 and, as I said, is currently only available via PlayStation Plus at time of writing.